A'ja Wilson's just a big bully. Look at this. Throws Lexi Hull on the ground. Everything she does is illegal. Look at this one. A moving screen and then pushes Lexi Hull. You think they ever call a foul on A'ja Wilson?
The Las Vegas Aces came out swinging right from the opening tip, throwing elbows, flopping for calls, and resorting to cheap shots to try and set the tone. But the Indiana Fever didn't back down for a single moment. Every time A'ja Wilson tried to push her way through or when Vegas attempted to intimidate with physicality, the Fever countered with speed, relentless aggression, and unshakable toughness. What the Aces thought would scare Indiana only ended up revealing their own desperation. And when Kelsey Mitchell started draining shot after shot, silencing the arena with clutch baskets, it wasn't just about putting points on the board, it was about sending a message. This wasn't just another win. This was revenge, proof that the Fever could take Vegas's arrogance and flip it back on them. And what made it even more satisfying was what Lexi Hull had to say afterward, after spending the night as the target of A'ja Wilson's repeated cheap plays. Drop a comment with "Fever" to show your support for Indiana for standing tall despite everything stacked against them. This victory wasn't supposed to belong to them, but they took it anyway. Heading into the night, the narrative was all about A'ja Wilson's legacy. Before the game even started, history was already written as she accepted her MVP trophy in front of the home crowd. The stage was set for a celebration, for the Aces to dominate and remind the rest of the WNBA that this was their dynasty, their championship, and their crown to defend. But when the final buzzer sounded, that pre-game celebration looked more like a distraction than a triumph. The glow of Wilson's trophy presentation faded quickly as soon as the game tipped off, because everything Vegas thought would come easy turned into a nightmare. On their home floor, the Las Vegas Aces, the reigning champions, were stunned, falling 89-73 to the Indiana Fever in a playoff upset that nobody saw coming. From the very first quarter, Indiana dictated the pace. They controlled the game from start to finish. Sure, there was a brief stretch in the third quarter when it seemed like Vegas might claw their way back, when the crowd thought, "Oh, here come the Aces." But every time momentum started to swing, Kelsey Mitchell and Odyssey Sims shut the door, putting out the fire before it could even spark. The Aces had been crowned heavy favorites coming in, with media chatter making it sound like Indiana was lucky to even be in the same building. Vegas had the star power, the championship pedigree, the streak of dominance. Indiana, on the other hand, was decimated by injuries, missing 6 players, including Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and Sydney Colson. Most experts had already written this matchup off as unfair, a battle over before it began. That smug confidence seeped right down to the Aces bench, where head coach Becky Hammon had even told reporters that Indiana hadn't seen the real Aces yet. The implication was crystal clear: this was supposed to be a statement game for Las Vegas. But all of that pre-game talk only played into Indiana's hands. The Fever were treated like a footnote, an afterthought in the story of the Aces' title defense. Analysts barely mentioned them, brushing them off as just another obstacle in the champ's path. But that kind of dismissal worked perfectly for the underdogs. When no one expects you to win, you play free. You remove the pressure. You step onto the court with nothing to lose, and that's exactly what Indiana did. From the opening tip, their freedom and focus were obvious. The ball zipped around with crisp passing, shots fell early, and the Aces, despite their bravado, looked half a step slow. Suddenly, it wasn't Indiana carrying the burden of expectations. It was Las Vegas, the two-time champs, being forced into a fight they weren't prepared for. Arrogance quickly turned into panic once it was clear Indiana wasn't backing down. And by night's end, the story that had been ignored was now the headline. In a best-of-5, 72% of teams who win Game 1 go on to take the series. With Indiana snatching the first victory on the road, the math had flipped, and Vegas was left rattled on their own floor. The shift in momentum was obvious the moment Indiana refused to crumble. The Aces abandoned sharp basketball and instead leaned into ugly tactics. Instead of sticking to their offensive rhythm, they defaulted to shoving, jawing, and desperate plays that had little to do with execution. The supposed celebration of dominance turned into the league's most decorated team scrambling for shortcuts. Lexi Hull, in particular, was on the receiving end of non-stop hits, elbows, shoves, and illegal screens that went uncalled. Time and again, Wilson shoved players away from the ball, exaggerated contact with flops that fooled no one, and even hooked opponents' arms before throwing herself to the ground as if she'd been fouled. Rather than playing like an MVP, she set the wrong tone, one built on theatrics instead of leadership. And the Aces followed her lead, with Jackie Young and others laying hits more suited for football than basketball. But here's the twist, the Fever didn't just endure it, they thrived on it. Each shove, each foul, each flop only made Indiana sharper. Instead of retaliating, Kelsey Mitchell demanded the ball more, slicing through Vegas's defense like it was nothing. Odyssey Sims stepped up her defense, pressing tighter, controlling possessions, and calming her teammates in the chaos. Natasha Howard and Brianna Turner held the paint with discipline, refusing to be pushed off their spots. Lexi Hull, despite being thrown around all night, locked Jackie Young down and finished with a staggering +24+-, the best of the game. Their composure in the face of constant cheap shots turned the Aces' intimidation into fuel. And then there was Kelsey Mitchell, Money Mitch. She went off for a playoff career-high 34 points, torching everyone Vegas threw at her. Kirsten Bell? Cooked. Jackie Young? Torched. Chelsea Gray? No answer. Jewel Lloyd? Same story. The Aces had no defender who could slow her down. She scored from everywhere, dagger jumpers, fearless drives, and clutch threes, even as Vegas tried to jaw at her or shove her after plays. Her performance wasn't just efficient, it was dominant, the kind of offensive explosion that no one on the reigning champs could match. While Wilson struggled to find her rhythm, Mitchell turned the night into her stage. But it wasn't just her. Odyssey Sims looked like she had been waiting for this exact moment her entire career. She played with veteran poise, driving into the paint with fearlessness, getting her hands in passing lanes, and controlling the tempo. When Vegas tried to drag Indiana into chaos, Sims steadied the ship. Natasha Howard and Brianna Turner battled relentlessly inside, making life miserable for Wilson and holding their ground without losing discipline. Together, they turned the paint into a wall. And at the heart of it all was Aaliyah Boston. On the same night Wilson was crowned MVP, Boston outplayed her, locking her down possession after possession. Wilson finished with just 6 for 22 shooting, missing layups, forcing jumpers, and growing visibly frustrated, while Boston controlled the paint with strength, poise, and composure. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. Wilson spent the night flopping for calls, gesturing to referees, and forcing contested shots, while Boston stayed calm, executed her role, and never let the moment rattle her. Vegas expected to dominate, but instead their MVP was shut down, and their coach Becky Hammon avoided giving credit where it was due, refusing to admit Boston had flat-out won the matchup. It was karma in real time. Wilson got her flowers in the afternoon, but by night's end, she was walking off the court as the most frustrated player in the building. Inside Indiana's locker room, the energy told the story. Players celebrated not just a win, but a statement. Lexi Hull, who had endured the brunt of Wilson's dirty play, summed it up best: "We're capable of whatever we want." And she was right. Because winning Game 1 in a best-of-5 isn't just a victory, it's a turning point. Nearly 3 out of 4 teams who win that opener go on to take the series. That means the Fever didn't just pull off an upset. They shifted the balance of power. Vegas now faces unfamiliar territory. Embarrassed at home, their MVP exposed, and their confidence shaken, they head into Game 2 knowing adjustments must be made. Expect Jackie Young to chase Mitchell all over the court, expect Wilson to demand deeper touches, and expect the Aces to slow the pace. But Indiana? They play with nothing to lose. Stephanie White has her team believing, the locker room is united, and even the injured stars are on the sidelines acting like extra coaches. This isn't just about momentum anymore. If Indiana steals Game 2 in Vegas, the Aces will be staring elimination in the face back in Indianapolis. The Fever didn't just win a playoff game. They changed the entire story of the postseason. On the night Aya Wilson was crowned MVP, the Indiana Fever humbled the Las Vegas Aces, claiming their first semifinal win in over a decade. Think about that, a short-handed roster, written off by everyone, walked into the toughest arena in the WNBA and made history. And if history is any guide, this upset could be the turning point of the whole series. Can the Fever ride this wave all the way to something bigger? If they do, everything changes. Drop a comment with Fever to show your support for Indiana's fight, despite all the adversity thrown their way. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss the next chapter. Click the video on your screen, and we'll see you in the next breakdown.